Hello, welcome to the show. This is a show called How Nice. I'm your host, Lucas. On this show, we talk about how nice plants are, and by extension, Mother Earth that holds them. I wish I had a mother to hold me. We're gonna talk about a plant that you likely have in your home. Everyone knows this plant. Everyone loves this plant. It is the cactus. Let's get into it. Cactus are native to the Americas. There's this other plant called euphorbia that a lot of people think is cactus, but it's not. That's filled with milky juice, but cactus is filled with translucent juice. But no shade to euphorbia. They're amazing in their own right. However, today is about the cactus, and we're gonna talk so much about the cactus, guys. I'm so excited. Now, cactus are the batteries of the plant world. They're not filled with lithium mined by enslaved children, but they are filled with water, just like you and me. Now, you know how you have to drink all the time? Like, I drink all the time, but cactus can go months, even years without a drink, and they may end up like a raisin. You know how raisins are. But that means nothing when you're filled with translucent, sweet, sweet juice. We can't keep talking about cactus unless we mention spines. Okay, we've mentioned them. Moving on. I'm just joshing you. I'm just kidding. We're gonna talk about spines, okay? You may have noticed that cactus are just balls or pillars of tough green skin. They're plants. Where are the leaves? Plants are supposed to have leaves. It is good that you're asking questions. This is evidence of a young, bright mind. Now, in the desert, leaves can be a problem. You see, there's this thing called
Water.
Water. It leaves plants through transpiration. You may have noticed plants withering in a drought. The bigger leaf that you have, the more surface area for water to escape. If you're in the desert, you want to trap the water. Keep it all to your little green self. What's the answer? Spines. It's spines. You turn your leaves into spines and photosynthesize through your stem. This reduces water loss and provides a multitude of other benefits for the cactus. It can provide shade and it can provide defense. Maybe you were in the grocery store and there's a little cactus in the aisle that didn't want you to touch it. But you touched it and you got a little prick, got a little ouchie. You didn't know any better then, but you know better now, don't you? I, for one, am not very good at defending myself. In fact, I'm downright helpless most of the time. Let's be honest. I wish I could replace my arms with spines. Perhaps then, people would respect my boundaries a little better. Wouldn't that be nice? Hello. Welcome to How Nice, where we talk about how nice plants are. I don't know about you, but I don't really like the concrete jungle all that much. I don't find it very nice. But some fellas, they like it all the same. Urban plants, they go pretty unnoticed. And if they are noticed, they're considered an eyesore, vagrants. But these downtrodden fellows aren't hurting anyone. They just got a rough and gruff look to them, and a huge PR problem, like me. For example, ragweed. They spring up in newly disturbed soils such as building developments and pump out excessive amounts of pollen into the air, giving you hay fever. But you know what else they pump out? Tons of seeds. You know what eats seeds? Birds. Especially in the winter. They need those seeds to get nice and plump so they don't die in the cold. You like birds, don't you? Don't let them starve. The big problem is ragweed and many plants like them aren't particularly charismatic. People tend to think they look unkempt, weedy, and unpleasant. But what is truly unpleasant is the concrete you're standing on and your fucking attitude. If you actually stop to think for once, these plants are incredible. They grow in cracks. They deal with excessive road salt, unbearable heat, and being stepped on all the time. There's practically no soil save for some sand and stray feces, and yet most of them are thriving. Believe me, I know how hard it is to live solely off of the fallow aftermath of humanity. A lot of urban plants, you'll find, have very short life cycles. A kind of live fast, die young attitude, real punks. But in a more natural setting, these plants would be pretty sparse. You'd only really see them, after a fire or a landslide, a tree fall, eroding riverbanks, or a David Lynch movie or any other kind of disturbance event. This means their seeds need to be able to lay dormant for decades, sometimes centuries, waiting for a moment to be brought back to the surface. They get some sunlight and pop right up. And in a few years, they're replaced with slower growing species that dominate them back into submission, banishing them to the soil realm once again. These plants thrive in disturbance. And we humans love to disturb shit. Plows, soil tilling, road paving, tire tracks, they all contribute to bringing these seeds up to the surface. They can all deal with the shitty soil because they don't really have another choice. They've evolved to get by on very little, taking advantage of space that, frankly, many plants would find inhospitable. Maybe you're an urban plant, paved over, under all that civilization, waiting for a crack in the pavement to show up so you can shine. Live your necessary, scrappy, fulfilling, but albeit short life. I hope you find that crack in the pavement. Wouldn't that be nice? Hello, welcome back to the show, How Nice, where we talk about how nice plants are. People don't usually find me boring. In fact, I'm a pretty interesting guy. My therapist thinks so. She's always saying, I'm gonna send you in for more studies. Can you believe that? People want to study me! Unfortunately, a lot of people think most plants are boring, especially ones that are ubiquitous in our landscape. One of those plants, for example, is oaks. People just don't care about them. They're everywhere. They dump leaves on people's lawns and makes them mad. You may be thinking, why would I care about such a boring tree? They don't even have pretty flowers to look at. I'm gonna make you pay for saying that. If you haven't guessed it yet, this week's episode is on oaks. Stop yawning! You may not care about oaks, but a shit ton of other people do. You will give them respect! By people, I mean bugs, and birds, and raccoons, and squirrels! Speaking of squirrels, let's talk about acorns. Acorns have some meat to them, which gives a good head start to the tree that's within. This always makes them incredibly valuable to seed predators. Fascinatingly enough, predators that eat the oak fetuses are the main distributors of the oak lineage. You see, when an acorn falls, it doesn't really move. They just stay there. Not unless someone else gives them help. Animals cache these tasty morsels for later in all sorts of locations. With all those food caches, you're bound to forget some. Blue jays may bring their acorns up to a mile away from the parent plant. In their forgetfulness, they plant hundreds of oaks every year. Just a single bird. But aren't they gonna eat them, you say? Oh, now that it's a baby, you care? Typical. An oak sapling may only grow a few inches in the first 2-3 years of its life. They spend this time investing energy into establishing the root systems. Then, ever so slowly, they grow upwards toward the shade. Now, a tree will fall down and open up the canopy. Then they just shoot up, shading out their competition. It's like starving your neighbors that you've known for 50 years. Let's talk about leaves. Oak leaves have a lot of tannins, which is unpalatable to most. Hasn't stopped the moths though. You see, oaks have been around so long that hundreds of insects, especially Lepidoptera, have evolved relationships with them. These little guys love to nibble up them leaves, and the oak is like cool with it, I guess. I personally think they like to get eaten by all those caterpillars. I wonder what it feels like. Perhaps tingly. These expansive relationships mean that oaks' role in supporting ecosystem diversity is disproportionately larger than others, making oaks keystone species. Who would have guessed that such a boring plant could be so fucking important? So there. I hope you're able to look at yourself critically and admit that you've been wrong your whole life. Oaks are not boring. You're the boring one. See how it feels when someone assumes things about you and they don't know anything about your life? It's a good lesson, isn't it? Well, if you'll excuse me, I have to be the subject of a study. Maybe I'll find out something about myself. Wouldn't that be nice? Oh, hi. Welcome back to the show. This is How Nice, where we talk about how nice plants are. We have an interesting development for a little sapling of a show. See what I did there? The higher ups, they think the show's not educational enough. They want hot facts and scientific sources and other jargon. Personally, I don't really know what they're on about, but we wouldn't want to get the show canceled now, would we? So for this segment, I'm going to use this textbook to guide us through our next subject. Ferns! Get ready. You're going to learn so much about ferns. Okay, let's see here. What shall we start with? Oh, fern reproduction. The life cycle of pteridophytes alternates between two distinct generations, represented by separate and unlike plants. For example, the familiar leafy fern represents the apex of the prothallus. The zygote formed not the union of the haploid male and female. I knew that. The gametophytic plant is a small. Later, the cells in the sporangium undergo meiosis to form the haploid spores. What the hell is this? What kind of story is this? Are they trying to make plants boring? Oh my god. Where's the drama? The poetry? I know this is a textbook, but this narrative simply lacks heart. The network isn't gonna like this. But you know what? Screw them. I don't care if this show gets canceled. We'll just put it on public access. Okay, where do we begin? What is a fern? As far as we know, they first appear in the fossil record, dating back to 360 million years ago. This was during the Devonian period, meaning they played a crucial role in the plant takeover of the land. So they're like super old. Older than flowers. Older than pine cones. They reproduce through spores, which is what that terrible book was trying to tell us. They have all these organs that grow under their leaves that make and distribute the spores called sori. Sometimes a plant will dedicate a whole leaf solely for this purpose. That's called a fertile frond. They often stand upright and blow their babies into the wind. Frond, that's a nice word. That's the leaf of a plant. They can get pretty big. You need to be big when you're in a shady understory. Catch all that light. That precious resource of light. Hey, I never had breakfast this morning. But for some reason, I'm not really hungry anymore. Weird. Speaking of breakfast, fiddleheads. You can eat them, but only some. Many types of ferns are much too fuzzy to properly digest in your sensitive tummy. Some people over-harvest these fiddleheads and sell them off to restaurants for a massive profit. This is unethical, and it hurts the plant. You should leave most of those fiddleheads so they can turn into those amazing photosynthesizing organs so that the plant can live a long, happy life. Wouldn't that be nice? Hi. Hi. Fooled you, didn't I? Did you see me? Bet not, because I was being small. Just like the plants we're going to talk about today. They go largely unnoticed, like me. Nobody ever pays any attention to me, but that's okay. Moss! Today is a moss talk. We're going to talk about moss. Why is moss so small? Surely they would want to grow up and up and up towards the sun, right? Wrong. Moss is perfectly happy where it is. And besides, they wouldn't be able to anyway. They don't have those sweet vascular tissues to transport water through their stem. So they have to stay low to the ground, where the water is. They also don't have roots. They're more like root hands that grip onto any desirable surface. You'll find moss on all sorts of things, from tree trunks, rocky outcrops, bricks, dirt, and rotting logs. Since moss can't suck up the water from the soil, it needs to be able to deal with drying out. So it just goes dormant, I guess, waiting to get that sweet liquid to rejuvenate them. Now I'm turgid and ready to photosynthesize. Because moss goes where the water is, you may find it in abundance, where it seeps out from the rocks. Look! A moss wall! This rock wall is much too steep to hold any pockets of soil, and would be bare without the moss. But because it's here, there is now a valid growing medium for other plants to drop their babies and make a life, like this one. We should all support each other, especially when we're trying to grow on vertical rock spaces. You can often tell the moisture content of a place by what kind of moss is growing there. For example, this area exposed to the sun is mainly home to a very teeny tiny thin type of moss. This understory harbors these little pine tree looking guys. Just imagine all the tiny critters having a good time in there, eating each other, no worry about morals. And this bog is so packed full of moisture, this sphagnum moss is just like one big squishy wet pillow. Just like my pillows used to be when I was up all night, crying. Let's remember that therapy is expensive. Being alive is hard. Especially knowing that we're all fucked in the end. But looking at plants is free. Maybe we can reconnect with nature and feel a little better while we all descend into the darkness. Thank you for being here today. Goodbye.